potential conflict with any of the items on the agenda, please let us know now. And that will just move on to item 23.7.2, the Teviot Cemetery Trustees.
Thanks for that. I think it's a reasonably straightforward report. The trustees no longer want to manage the Teviot Cemetery. So under the Freedom of Information Act, Council has really no option but to assume the day-to-day management of that cemetery, and we need to formally do that because there will be changes to the designated through the Ministry of Health to manage the Freedom of Information section of the Act for this purpose. So the other thing is that will mean the cost for burials will increase, and that's proposal of the councils, cover the cost, etc., and that the fire brigade still continue to undertake the 1 or 2 burials we have a year.
But you know that those charges levied to the family, or they levied to the undertaker?
So there's two costs. The family covers all the costs. So there's cost for borrowing the plot, there's cost for digging the hole.
You levy those directly to the families?
Yeah. Or through the undertaker who's on charges.
Yeah.
What the setup is.
Yeah. But if an undertaker's involved, it will be charged to the undertaker.
Generally, that's the case, and then they will charge that part of your fees, I think, to the family that get on the set up, and that's enough. But that's what happens with all the other cemeteries.
And the fire brigade, so they get paid to fit in the plot for the business.
Yeah, we need to work through all that. Yeah, I guess it's fundraiser for them type of thing, or they do it for.
Very slow one.
That's right. Or community service as well. So. But yeah, these things you know, money.
So why would the cost go up? Because if they're doing it as a fundraiser, they're not putting new cost up, or the fire brigade putting new cost up.
So we need to work through that with them on that, and these will form part of the fees and charges. But I thought we'll come back to the board anyway once we've landed on that exactly. But at the moment, this will do that. Yeah.
We did note that a few of those current trustees are no longer.
Three of them, yeah.
Yeah. That really.
They're all here.
That's right. That's why they, I think, struggling with managing cemetery. So we had Rock Spring a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Did the same thing.
Yeah.
And just an update on that. Our property team have applied to the certificate of approval for that cemetery, and that we were hoping it'd probably be in the new year before we get there.
Yeah.
So that's taken a long process, that one, but they had some encroachment as we recall, so we decided that's as we've gone through.
All right. We've got any more questions? Thank you, Gordon. Recommendations are that we receive a report that accepts the level of significance and agree to accepting the administration, management and operation of the Teviot Cemetery. And
Has been put out to the community though that these trustees didn't die, and you've been anything about this, but then I haven't been home a lot. I think there's a couple of little but I'm just wondering, does anybody in the community been given the opportunity to take, to be on that?
that would be up to the trust to do it, not us.
That's right.
So if they were looking to go down that path, they would have had to have done that. Coming there to us, and so can you take that?
And I believe I haven't had much interest in.
Yeah. There's something that would have happened before, right here.
The very old way of running the cemetery.
Yeah. So I can just pass a motion to for all of those recommendations. Well, move that, that the recommendations as per the report be accepted and I have a second for that.
I'll second that.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against say no. Carried. Thanks, Billy. Okay, so 23.7.3, Teviot Valley Financial Report. Donna.
So take the paper as being read. For the period ending 30th September 2023, there was an overall favourable variance of $10,000. The operating income has a favourable variance of $24,000. This is mainly driven by an increase to our interest rates. So for our deposits, which is driving our internal interest be higher than budget, and that's just reflective of our surplus reserve account balances. Unfortunately, if the deficit goes the opposite way, it will cost more, but at the moment it's not quite showing through. So user fees are also favourable, and this is due to funds transferred from the Roxburgh Cemetery Trust as part of the ownership transfer into council funds. Expenditure has an unfavourable variance of $14,000. The building repair and maintenance variance is due to the timing of the Mills Flat Bus operating grant. Unfortunately, it's paid out in one lump sum on an annual basis, which I believe was in August, but the budget is spread over 12 months. So that will just end up as we go through the year. The contract has an unfavourable variance, and this is due to the replanting costs for the Roxburgh Forestry Block and also the tree removal at the Roxburgh Pool, and they have all been passed through resolution by the committee. Capital expenditure has a favourable variance of $16,000 with a total of 7% increase year to date. Our carry forward capital work project budgets from 2022-2023 are still being worked through, and we expect to have them available 2 years before the December report. The reserve funds for the Teviot Valley Award have an unaudited result for 30 June 2023 of $1.1 million. Once the carry forward budgets are complete, the annual plan and carry forward movements will be added to the reserve table, which will give you a better understanding of where you are planning to be in the financial year. I think any questions?
You got any questions?
No, I've read it all and I'm quite happy.
Yeah. So I've got one question, and it relates to 7351, maternity ward services rate. We asked a question a while back about what the, I guess the expenditure against that.
Through that account.
Yeah.
So
And we're waiting for clarification on.
that's fine. So back when they prepared the long-term plan for the 21-31 period, in the period, there were decisions made by the committee and the council to use surplus reserves to reduce the impact on the rates increases. So this is one of those movements.
Okay.
It was identified to use the $8,000 out of that account to offset rates for the ward. And as if we will be reviewing that this coming LTP.
So you're saying that if we've got 1,600 rating units, that's reduced the rate score by $5 per rates unit. Yeah. This year. But that's the annual figure, is it? Or?
So yes, that's the annual piece, that was for the last financial year. Yeah. Just the impact on the normal operation expenditure.
So does that end, like when that ends up at zero in the years to come, if it's not changed in the way it's managed now? How was that? For
Well, once the fund's run out, the fund is
So who makes the decision to do that each year?
So unfortunately, I wasn't part of the original conversation in the LTP.
Yeah.
So I believe it was brought through to the committee, to make those decisions.
This community board here. Is that an enduring decision or is it an annual decision?
I'm unsure.
It'd be an LTP decision. Yeah, it would be a decision you can review coming LTP. So it's next year, that's nice.
So it would have been made when the LTP was last renewed, which is 3 years ago.
when I first started?
Could have been the one before, I can't actually.
Mm.
Yeah, okay. But that's the time to.
I was just wondering what the impact on our, like, we're sitting there saying that we've got, you know, our reserves are still at 1.315 or so.
You
Really?
want 535, yeah.
Yeah, and we start writing things off like that. It's our reserve, but what does that mean?
Basically, it reduces the ability to use it for other things. So, like we've been putting money towards the Rockwood Pool, for instance. So it just reduces your ability to run off community activities. It does rebound, that one. There is income still going into it. And that is from the revenue received from the lease.
Okay. Okay.
Just got a question on the Teviot variable pay committee. We're closing down to 42,000. So I'm going to actually, I wasn't know. So, for 32,000. We love that.
We've always done that project a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Not quite right.
Yeah, I'll be quite happy with the 30 shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The legalised.
Right.
Well, you guys saw that.
There might be just that they kept thing in the LTP that's not to be there, but the balance will stay. Looking at going forward. So you mean I can use it?
Okay, so anyone got any more questions? Just put, move then that that report be received. Can I have a second, please?
I'll second it.
All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against say no. Carry. Thank you. Good item.
Thank you, Chair Norm. At present, staff are putting together the draft budgets for the first consideration of next year's LTP, and mayors around the country are asking each other what is the number. And the number is what our anticipated next average residential rates rise is likely to be. And so what happens is you get the number and then you start going, well, what can we do about the number? Because generally something needs to be done about it because that's your starting point. At the time of writing, I don't have the number, but I can tell you that it's going to be above 20% and it's going to probably be closer to 30% than 20%, which is just a horror show. This is a council that 3 years ago was still trying to maintain its rates below 5%. And now we're faced with this. And we are not alone. In fact, every council in the country that I've talked to, 30% down, sort of very few under 20. And there's a number of reasons for that. You've got general inflation higher than it normally is, but you've also got build inflation, and anybody who's tried to do renovations or build a house lately knows that it's way more than a 6% increase on what it was last year. So we're in the business of building stuff a lot of the time, and so it gets more expensive. The stuff that we own has all gone up in value significantly, and that means that our depreciation has to increase to reflect that. We've got bridges that need to be fixed. Those alone are looking at being a 3% rates rise if we want to get And I say bridges being fixed, replaced, or done away with, but we need to deal with our bridges because many of them are reaching an age now where they are falling over. That at the moment is predicted to be 3% over 5 years. We've got massive audit fees that increases that we cannot avoid. We've got incredible increases in insurance that we cannot avoid. And we now have the three waters, which we were anticipating 6 months ago to be shot off by middle of next year. And then suddenly it was October 2025, and now they're ours for the foreseeable future. Three waters alone, given what needs to be done, and particularly with the impact of the Campylobacter outbreak in Queenstown, which has put greater emphasis on protozoa barriers in 3 of our plants, being Cromwell, Patearoa and Ranfurly, is going to be over 10% in its own right. 10% rates increase next year in its own right, and it will flow on from that too. Those membranes to block the Campylobacter or the barriers, they might not necessarily be membranes, were budgeted for in the 2018 LTP to be done by 2028. We're now having to pull them in sooner, and the cost of doing that's increased. So regrettably, all of those things, if you just take the things that we cannot avoid, they're going to be, don't know yet, but I'm going to throw up 20%. It makes me feel like throwing up, frankly, but that's where it sits. Now, we're not just going to sit there and go, all right, well, that's what it is. Well, I don't think we are. I mean, we're not going to sit there in the first instance and go, that's what it is. And there's ways that we can look at it. You've heard one of them today. You can spend your reserves to lessen the impact on rates, but it does stop you having money to invest in other things. I'm not a big fan of not funding depreciation where it's needed to be funded, because all you're doing is consuming that item and leaving tomorrow to pay for it. Now, bridges are a classic example. We stopped funding depreciation on our bridges in 2015 after central government cut funding to what was then the New Zealand Transport Agency by around 20%, at approximately the same time as they increased the weight of trucks that were allowed to go over our bridges in order to keep that bounce off the rates. We stopped depreciating bridges, and now we have less money to help fix the problem. Wouldn't have fixed all of the problem, but it would have been nice to have it. You don't want to throw out good investments for short-term gains. We need to look at asset sales. You can see Wellington and Auckland going, we're going to sell our shares in the airports. They are facing exactly what we're facing, and that's their way to do it. If we look at asset sales, we need to look really closely at how any proceeds are applied. We're going to be looking at a governance structure, and I'll talk more about that to increase efficiency. And we also need to look at other means of income. How we do that, we're not sure, but rates are our primary income by a massive amount, and we need to find other income streams to subsidise them, investments in other words. And we're going to have to put some of these things together, which is going to include also what is it we're doing now that the community thinks we can do without, in order to, when you're looking at rates increases like that, the line between a want and a need suddenly changes. So what is it that we can consider doing without in order to lessen that shock? It's a really rubbish situation. I note at present that CODC is pretty much at the top of the bottom third of councils for average residential rates. We've also got one of the lowest debt burdens. So we're coming at this, which is a crisis across the whole country, from a better starting point than many. That doesn't, however, lessen the impact of people when they get a massive rate shock coming in their post. And we know, obviously, that there are many households and businesses already struggling with their budgets. So buckle up, folks. Between now and the LTP coming out at the end of June is going to be a hell of a rough ride, particularly for councillors, because not a lot of this cost falls on the boards, but it is just going to be a very rough time as we work our way through this. We've also done quite a lot of preliminary work on next year's representation review, and for those of you who weren't here 6 years ago, this happens every 6 years. You can do it more regularly, but you have to do it every 6 years. And what it is just a look at our governance structures, and within the law, which is quite strict, ask if you want to change them with the community, and ask if there are better ways to do things. So such questions as may be asked during reviews is where the current ward boundaries are appropriate. whether there should be Māori wards, how many elected members we have, the role of community boards comes up often in these things. Essentially, it's a chance to ask ourselves, then the community, whether the way that we're doing things for the last 6 years at a governance level is right for the future. And just by way of example, last time around, the changes that were made were removing the distinction between the Alexandra and the Ernst-Hurukea wards. So Vincent used to have 2 separate wards within inside Vincent. When it came to the election, that artificial boundary was taken away. It always seemed a bit ridiculous to me. I lived in Clyde in the Ernst-Hurukea ward and drove to Alexandra to work 8 kilometres away. We also increased the number of Cromwell councils by 1 due to population growth, which is mandated in the law that there has to be a balance between the numbers of people that are represented by the number of representatives. So there's a bit of work to do on that and opportunities there too, I believe. Also, quite a bit of time has been spent by me and also Councillor Tamerali. I'm part of the advisory board for the future by local government review. You would remember the future for local government review that was done. That review is completed. It's now sitting on a shelf, and if local government doesn't do something with it, then my view, and generally everyone else's view, is that things will be done to us. When you've got a sector in crisis like we are, and a lot of the crisis is the makeup of how we do everything, particularly get our income, something's got to break. So if we're not in the middle of making the discussions and going to the new government and saying, here's our answers to fix our problems, many of which problems are created by current legislation, then it'll just be done to us. So we've been doing a lot of work on that, and there's a special general meeting of LGNZ in early December to look at progressing with this work. And I attended the Roxburgh Business Breakfast, I think it was last week, made some useful connections with new people in the area, and it was always enjoyed the camaraderie and the company of the businesses of Roxburgh and the Teviot Valley. So that's quite a long one. Happy to take questions, Mr. Chairman.
You got any questions? Sorry.
No, because I've been to these meetings.
But
Well, no, that's a bit of a scare to hear that the level of rates increase and the issues facing us. As you said, outside the scope of what this board can really do about it, but it is pretty scary.
I think
Is there anything we can do about it?
Yeah, let's jump into that. Sorry to interrupt. Look, at March, April next year, Council's going to have to sit down with all the ideas and having discussed it with the public and go, right, what can we do? And we'll be putting some ideas up. Whilst those ideas almost certainly won't land on the board's table in an agenda paper, I encourage the board and all the boards to go, actually, we want our voice to be heard here. Sit down, look at what's happening, or write a submission perhaps. I can't see why not. Feed it through to Sally and myself as 2 people sitting around the council table, and you can be actively involved. If there are services that may be put up to be cut that will have a greater effect on the board if it happens, and I'm not going to start saying what we might look at, but for instance, I'm going to make it completely hypothetical so that I'm not putting in, if CODC ran a public bus service to our different areas and between our towns, which we don't, and that was put up to be cut, the majority of the people who live in Alex and Cromwell might not find that terribly bad, but for the people in the Maniatoto and the Teviot Valley, it would be a disaster. So we would need to hear from the board. And there may be other things that are being looked at that would have a similar impact. And I see absolutely no reason, in fact, I encourage the boards to get stuck in and not just look at the very limited, and it will be very limited because generally at LTPs, your ideas will come to this table and here's what it's going to cost the pool last time around. I wouldn't be looking at new things this time around. I don't think there's going to be very much scope for new things because there's no.
It'd be nice just to get some stuff fixed.
Yeah.
Fixed. The front of King George Park, it needs to be fixed.
The which?
The front of King George Park, it's leaking water. 24 hours a day, there's water coming down there. God knows where it's coming from. And it's just a continuing, ongoing mess.
I'm looking at
And
our
it's been
parks
that
manager
way
who's
for
got a very
40
physical place.
40 years.
40 years.
40. I've been in the valley for 40 years. There's still no curbing and channeling down that path. Half our streets aren't curbed and channeled.
Well, they won't be.
They should have been.
Well,
A
they
long time ago, we're gonna get more wet. It's what the climate science says.
Won't happen anytime soon. Because you look at our budgets. And that's what I'm saying, you know, there are many towns, I live in one of them, where we've got curbs and channel or footpaths on one side of the road. That's gonna be, because there's no money for new things. But certainly Gordy is gonna,
Well,
jump on his face, he's gonna be able to look at King George Park.
Fire hydrant opposite Jimmy's Spice, that could be,
Fire.
yeah, there's a fire,
There's
yeah,
chicken
spots
down
there,
in the
and it could be
garden.
going under the road and going further
You're
down.
doing
the
that for
park.
40 years.
So, have a look at, have a look opposite Jimmy's.
Office stand over at, in front of that park.
Mhm.
It hasn't rained for several days. It's still
But
flooding.
when it rains, is there a soak pit there?
When it rains, halsies.
so I've started some discussions with Clinton around that. About what we can do in the long-term view, the frontage of King George Park, and just the jewel on our crown. And it's a Wakatoa Kotahi project as well.
I realise that, but it's still 40 years of not being fixed.
Well, okay, so I've reignited the discussion,
Thanks, Mum.
but as Tim said, we've just ain't got any money at the moment. And unlike the in the future. So it's, yeah, I'm not sure where it's gonna go, but at least with the, because I have had a lot of inquiry about it myself. Yeah. So thank you, Mayor Tim.
I won't say it was a pleasure, no.
I just move that the mayor's report be received.
I second it.
All those in favour say aye. Those against say no. Carry. Okay, from the chair's report, I mean, Tim's just covered a lot of the stuff that around questions that I have had with rates and rates increases and how it's all going to be managed and so forth. And I raised in our members only time my concern about the lack of business that's coming to our table, and just believe that as a board, you know, when I've sat back and reflected what I did in the last 6 weeks since we met last, business as usual, you know, stuff we're doing here, but there's nothing that was out there challenging the board's position or the board challenging, I'm putting out strong representation for the community. So I'm seeking some advice from Mayor Tim and some support from Mayor Tim about how this board could be more proactive, and he touched on one or two items in that report, in his report, on how we could focus on aspects of the LTP and representation and so forth in the coming year. So just every time I sit back and come to write the chair's report, and this time I struggle to what have we done as a board? What have I done as the chair? Pretty hard to do when you've got nothing to sort of latch on to. So I'm pretty keen for us to, I guess, once we get the other side of December, January, and we've got more information on the LTP, coming through the LTP in the 25 January meeting, that we are starting to, I guess, latch on to the things that we can pursue on behalf of the community. And apart from that, as I said before, I've just done the general business as usual, rest home meetings. I don't think I've been to a business group meeting this month. And just, I guess the main issue that's been raised out of the community was the information that's got out into the community about the burn mowing being withdrawn. That decision's been made apparently, and how that's got out there, I'm not sure, but we're dealing with that. I'll just suggest that it is inaccurate, and no decision has been made yet. So that's about all I've got to report this time around. I'll just move that my report be received.
Second.
Right. All those in favour say aye. Against. Carried. Members' reports. Jill, you want to start?
I haven't been to any other than a business breakfast meeting with the wellbeing agenda that had been put to the business meeting a few weeks ago. You wrote that one?
Yeah.
That was one?
Yeah.
Other than that, there's the next one I go to is tonight. I have no.
Right.
So I attended a museum committee meeting.
Yeah.
And they're moving through renovating the old trust building, the old lodge building. So that's progressing. And I attended a Ida McDonald Trust meeting, and that we gave out some money, which was good. And been to a few Miller's Flat community coffee mornings, where we have about 30 people turn up each week. It's good. I went to an Alexandra Business Group meeting where they specifically talked about potential for an Abbeyfield community housing project. It looked very exciting. They got some land, and so that's an Alex. So there's also a little group that are working on potential for a similar thing potentially in this valley. So that's why I attended that. Spatial plan, went to a meeting of that. Went to the Roxburgh Business Breakfast meeting. Where we talked about it. There's a new community trust, which is very interesting for emergency funds for people that are in need. Started by Glenn Christensen from
the gate.
From the gate. So if anybody knows anybody that's in dire financial need due to medical requirements, then there's a little bit of small funding increase, not for medicines or medicinal purposes, but for ancillary costs. There's a new trust there called the Central Otago Resilience Trust. I have been to several Teviot couple of Teviot Prospects meetings. Recently they had the garden show, which is their annual event, which went reasonably well, but just suffered from a bit of competition in the garden show market. But that was successful. And also the Teviot Prospects is looking at the potential for putting some mountain biking activities onto Grover's Hill, and so that's looking quite positive in the near future. And just as a matter of community interest, there was a recent garage sale extravaganza on Saturday 2 weeks ago or 10 days ago, and there were 40 garage sales in the community, and that raised funds for a kids can type thing. I spent $1,300 myself on bits and pieces. So it was a great thing.
Where were you shop?
That's me.
Okay, going.
So I attended 3 of the evening spatial plan workshops. I went to the one in the evening at Miller's Flat, which was a really positive meeting. It was really good, actually. Really some great ideas from the locals. So I thought that was really beneficial. I attended the Ida McDonald Trust, and we gave out $15,723.25. So that was good. Swimming pool has been keeping me a little bit busy because we're at a crunch time. We were still building it. We're trying to open it, and we're organising an opening ceremony. So it's a little bit crazy, and we haven't actually got really any time from when the building gets completed to us opening it. So our committee's actually under quite a lot of pressure trying to hopefully get open on the 17th of December is our anticipated opening. And I did send everyone an invite, so it'd be lovely to get your RSVP back if you are planning to attend. I attended that business breakfast where Glenn spoke, and I did share that on my council page and on the Teviot Valley Facebook page, that flyer. I contacted the golf course to give them a heads up about the open spaces consultation, because I thought they may be interested to apply in terms of campers being able to park at the golf course. Because remember, it wasn't part of the open spaces plan, and so this is an opportunity for them as a group to have their say and to be part of that plan. So I got in touch with them. Walkways committee, we've been tidying up the Grover's Hill, so that's all been weed eated now. The natives have been planted and they look amazing, so we're just hoping that we get a little bit of rain between now and Christmas to water them in. Horseshoe Bend Bridge, we have received the money for that work for both the signage. We got our money from Ida McDonald to do new signage down at Horseshoe Bend, and we received money for the track to be upgraded, and Josh Gunn told me that he's able to do that upgrading work before Christmas. So I think it's like the beginning of December they're going to start down there, so we should have new signage and a new track by Christmas, which is pretty exciting. And I spoke to Shane from the Cycle Trust, and he said once that track's completed then he'll put it up on all of the regional cycling websites as a little detour that cyclists will be able to do out to the bridge. So that's really cool. Teviot prospects, a couple of things there. So they're looking at a mural going on the wall outside here with the council building, but they're just working through a couple of issues. So once they work through those issues, then I'll be able to bring something back to the board when you've got a little bit more information. And the bike park at Grover's Hill, we went for a walk through on Tuesday night with Kath Kelly and Jeff, because they're interested in putting in some cycle tracks, and we're trying to get them to support a group. And it seems like they just really want to do a grassroots kind of cycle trail. So they're not looking for big bucks at all. Like they said, they'll probably sketch up a plan. They're looking at going up the other side of Grover's Hill to what walking tracks on. It's too steep, the side that we go up, so they want to use the other side because it's a lot more gradual. And so they're just going to look at where they think a track could go, and then in terms of forming it, Kath said it could be as easy as us riding our bike up and going, oh yeah, that line looks good, and then they put some lines in, and then they just start a bit of a committee where you meet once a week in the evening and you go and help build the track. And they probably would rather get the tracks in and then look at getting some signage once they're happy with where those tracks are. But they said it will just kind of evolve. Like they really aren't looking at
marking the track rather than forming a track.
Oh no, they're going to form it. They're going to form it, but they're just doing it by hand. They'll do it by hand. So there's no big cost involved in doing it.
That's how the kids used to do it up
Yeah.
there.
And they said the kids might get involved and set up some tracks as well. And then the only thing they may need to do is clear a little bit of the windrow if it's in the way of where the track is. But Kath also said that could also potentially become a jump. So yeah, they're really, really low maintenance, but they are going to try and get something together. And I said that I'm more than happy to liaise with them on a council level for any permissions that they need, and just to make sure that we're all happy with what they're planning. And then the only other thing was at Teviot Prospects the other night, Jenna bought a helmet along of a kid whose helmet got broken in half at the skate park, because there's not much room for the kids to land their tricks on the skate park. So I spoke to Mari about Mari. Did she talk to you, Gordy, about that?
Skate park.
Yeah. And we're just wondering if we can have a bit of a berm that goes off the back end of the skate park, so that there'd be the wall, so that there'd be somewhere for them to land if they didn't land on the concrete. Yeah. I'm wondering if there's anything we can do.
Anything stopping it's money.
Yeah.
Because we're going to the budget.
Yeah. Yeah, but
it was a community
yeah.
Project, so
Yeah. I think it would be more than anything would be like if we could get pointed in the right direction of who we should talk to, and then figure out how much it would cost. So James Buchan, yeah, but I don't know who we can talk to see. what would be involved and how much it would cost. That'd be great. And I'm not going to go into a council report because I think Mayor Tim gave us a pretty good indication of where we're at, and until we actually have some numbers and some things that I really don't have a lot to update you apart from what Tim said.
Okay, thank you. I just move those reports we received. Second, please. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no. Carried. 23.3, 7.7, the governance report. I take that, we've all read the report. And has anyone got anything they want discussed or updated on that?
The Pinders Pond one, that's just seems to be lingering on. Is
The what one, sorry?
Pinders Pond?
Yes.
Yeah. Is that part of your remit?
Yes, so
It's through the
Yeah.
contact.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The-
So
Yeah, we don't have-
having him in, just gone back to sitting in the bed, so Marius taking him up.
Yeah.
So we've been in touch with them for some months, as you know.
That's what I mean, yeah.
So it was a proposal brought to the board by Contact and Fish Game.
Yeah,
And, they, probably it will be 3 years ago now. When they first touched base.
Yeah, 2020.
And
Not 2019.
we haven't seen them since really.
that's.
They will be underfunded, so
Yeah.
it may be wrong.
Yeah.
But we can come back. But we can-
Like it was a joint initiative for the community that they were. So,
That's sort of a more, Ginny.
Yeah,
Larry has been communicating with us,
Yeah, okay.
each month.
right.
Yeah, right, we'll come back. I'll take it.
all right, I move that report be received.
Yeah.
I have a second for that, please.
Yep.
Those in favour say aye. Those against say no. Carried.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I note that Mr. Marsh is here. He was a bit delayed on his arrival. And I think he came to talk about the cemetery issue. I know that we've approved it.
Yeah.
Just wondering if there's anything that he might want to add or.
Yeah, I've got no issue with that. Yeah, yes. If you want
I
to,
sent the invitation to come on, I didn't know whether I needed to speak to it or not, whether you understood it fine. I mean, I know in this, document, you know, there's a few things that are incorrect. That probably need adjustment. I mean, some of the trustees that are listed there are deceased.
You know,
What's this rhythm?
The users of
I noticed the Brett Parker's not on there, so he's the maintenance to go to this. I mean, it's just a classic situation of, what we see in terms of people's time, commitments, what have you. To me, it made sense that we put this under the umbrella, you know, for some efficiencies in terms of one person looking after and having a central database. Yeah, the information that we've got is basically in a briefcase that Cliffy Parker had, which is all over the place and like almost unreconcilable. I mean, he tried his best, Cliffy, but the reality is there's no succession planning. No one else knew what was going on. And we don't even know whether we charge people accordingly to what they receive. So I think it's a good thing that's going to come under the council from that point of view. A couple of comments though I would make. I mean, obviously there's a change to the fees that talks about actual cost. You know, I think there needs to be something to show us that that is transparent and that those costs are real. You know, it's not subsidised. And you were talking about a cemetery. You know, what we don't want to see is profiteering through this process. So I think that probably needs to be, explained, to the trustees, how those numbers come about. And so we can see what salaries are involved and what true costs there are. Because otherwise, I don't know whether the trustees would actually accept that uplift that we're seeing there. And the other thing that's been admitted from here is the fact that there's a fund sitting there among the cash account, which have been accumulating over the years. And the trustees, basically talked about, this going ahead, subject to that money being sidelined, so the trustees could use it for beautifying the, cemetery, that sort of thing, rather than tipping it into the, office, right, into the council office.
So, not sure how it all works legally, but if we take over the cemetery operation, does the land, where does the land ownership sit?
The land is also already council's.
Right.
Council, you know, does all the mowing.
Yeah,
Council cemeteries generally try to be break even, but the costs going out.
so it's only the operation that we're taking.
Basically, they're cost on ratepayers, but some cemeteries, you know, as we know, this one's got quite low, insurance rates, so this one won't. And Roxburgh one probably is similar, won't cover that, the costs of natural burial would have to go up too much to cover that. That would be realistic, so, that's one of the things, in some of these smaller cemeteries, others, busy, so to speak, with others.
So the charges and fees, Russell, are already sort of set.
That's fine, I think, as long as we're transparent about it and we can see that those numbers, accurately reflect actual costs.
Yeah.
And they're not a theoretical number, that's fine. And at the end of the day, we've got to set that.
With the Ettrick Cemetery, is that entire parcel of land, is that one time, whole thing, is all cemetery? Because it's part of its domain. We'll not separate that off and keep the domain and pass the cemetery onto the council.
You mean in terms of the maintenance?
Yeah.
Well, it's still remote, but there's not a lot of maintenance to do in the domain. I mean, in the domain, the only thing that's been done is mowed every so often, a couple of trees, maybe trimmed back, and apart from that, it's not touched, but it wouldn't take much to keep it. I've got to go take all the suckers and stuff off. But, so coming back to what we were talking about earlier with the dog thing, so under the law, you're not allowed to have a dog in a cemetery. And that's why I'm looking at dividing that bit off, so.
I don't, yeah, that's something that's a little bit bigger than what we're
probably
talking about now.
Well, what we're talking about is fence.
Yeah.
So, sorry, I think the key adjustments here, based on what the trustees had decided they would go ahead and do this. We need to just get an answer in terms of, that current trust account and the amount that's in there and who's able to look after that and where's that going. We just need an answer for that, because I can't see that in your document.
So it's not in the document because the trustee was the trustees funds, and they indicated they were going to keep the funds.
Yeah.
So you can keep the funds, council wasn't intended to take
Yeah,
the funds.
Right, okay.
That's why it's not in the report.
That's, I mean, that's where I was going before. We're only taking over the operation of the
Yes,
cemetery.
Okay.
So if you've got a community fund there, well, that's entirely up to you, because the trust will stay intact.
And are you comfortable with this health and safety plan that the fire brigade have put forward in terms of them continuing on as a fundraiser for them to do the plot?
I didn't sign that off, but it would go to our health and safety officer who signed it.
So that hasn't been done yet?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, so this is subject to that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm sure we'll work together with that.
Right. That's fair.
Cool. Well, useful discussion. Thank you, Russell. Date for the next meeting, 25th of January.
Yep, I can't really see that far ahead, but
I think that's it. Declare this meeting closed. Thank you.